Welcome to the Purple Sky Thinking for Leaders podcast. This podcast is for you if you lead people, teams, or the organisation. You might be a leader or a manager yourself, or you might be part of the support team to help those people to be really successful. I'm Anwen. I'm the leadership success coach and founder of Purple Sky Consulting, and I'm going to be the host for this podcast. My mission is to help as many leaders as possible to really love what they do. I want to help you to feel more confident, more capable, more effective, so that you can build and grow happy, healthy, more successful teams. This podcast is going to be all about helping you to love leading. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to this next episode of the Purple Sky Thinking for Leaders podcast. I'm really delighted that we've got Erica Farmer joining us on the episode today from Quantum Rise. We're going to be delving into the topic of AI and how embracing it as a leader will be really beneficial for you and your team. So let's get right into the episode. Here we go. Erica, welcome. I'm just going to start by asking you to introduce yourself and maybe just share a little bit with us around what you'd like our listeners or viewers to know about you.
Great. Thank you so much for the invite. It's lovely to be here, and it's been lovely to watch your journey in the leadership support work that you've been doing as well since our days back in, I think it was British Gas, or something back in the day, so that we met. So thank you for the invite. So my name's Erica Farmer. I'm the co-founder and business director for Quantum Rise Talent Group. Within that job, I run the business. I'm a professional speaker in AI and future skills. And that's based on 25 years of corporate learning and development and apprenticeships work with organisations like British Gas, LV, Specsavers and Virgin. Now, probably since the last 2 years or so, certainly since my TEDx talk in 2022, we do a lot of work supporting organisations, big, small, middle, apprenticeship providers, levy payers, corporate L&D teams in their realisation and practical development of future skills, learning agility, using AI in learning and education, virtual learning best practice, all those kind of technical digital skills that we're now realising that can be done really well with the right mindset and skill set. So that's me professionally.
Wonderful. And you are my go-to gal on AI. That is for absolutely sure. So whenever anybody's talking about it, I'm like, are you following Erica? Make sure you're following Erica when it comes to anything in that AI space, especially where it kind of lends over into skills and development and that side of stuff. I think it's really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. For anybody who follows the podcast regularly, you'll know that I'm a big fan of travel, and I know you've been really thoughtful in terms of kind of your support when I was going off traveling as well. Our journey that we were doing in that. So we love to know what people's favourite travel destinations are. So share a little bit with our viewers where your top tip is.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly over the last 4 years, I've fallen in love with the Maldives.
Yeah.
It's one of those places that if you've been before, it ruins every other beach holiday you will ever have. I keep trying to talk the new boyfriend into going, but it's a bit cost prohibitive. But I'm like, it's okay, I've got my Avios points, we've taken care of the flight. Obviously, a week in a water bungalow on a beautiful atoll is a mortgage in itself these days. Prior to that, I would have said the States, probably the west coast of the States. I did some soccer coaching over there when I was at uni and just fell in love with that west kind of Nevada, North California type area. Just because the people are fantastic as well.
Yeah, California. I love California.
Yeah.
I think that this is the third shout out for the Maldives.
Is it?
Yeah, and we're on episode, I think, 14 or 12 or 14 or something like that.
You'll need to do a poll or something like that.
Well, hey, watch out. I mean, I know this will be going out after this weekend, but watch out for my post on LinkedIn at the weekend.
Absolutely.
This is high on our list to get to. We have not been here. We've been to Mauritius, love Thailand, love lots of the beach bits, but there is something about the Maldives that just looks magical.
You just can't beat it. Yeah.
So, okay, maybe we will do it this year. Who knows? Maybe next year. But yeah, that's what points are for. I'm not advocating, I'm not a financial advisor in any way, but hey, Avios points are the best. So yeah, definitely for that. Thank you for sharing that. Obviously, we're talking to leaders and trying to help them with their experience of leading and to be more confident and capable in that space. So we like to hear about our guests' own experiences in leading and leadership. So do you mind sharing a little bit about yours and kind of what you learned about yourself from that?
Yeah, absolutely. To summarize, probably 10 years, 15 years-ish of leadership experience, predominantly in learning and development. I thought I wanted to be a leader before I got there. And then I got there and I realized I didn't want to be a leader.
That is so honest. I love that. Thank you.
It's like the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life. And I've done quite a lot of challenging things. I like to
Yeah.
challenge myself. So I started off leading L&D teams 2010, I think that was, LV, when I was running the training team for Exeter at the life assurance site. And then I was lucky enough to be promoted to have the whole life and pensions business from an operational training perspective, which the one thing I wish people told me before I took that step is leadership is about stakeholders and politics and self-awareness. It's not, in my opinion only, not about developing people, although it should be. In corporate businesses, you are the middle of the sandwich that gets
Yeah.
squished on either side. So I went in naively into my first couple of leadership roles. I stepped into a head of L&D role and then a head of apprenticeships role, thinking it was all about delivering for the end user, delivering a great learning experience or apprenticeship journey for the apprentice, and doing that through the right people. So I guess that's the textbook answer, right? I quickly fell out of love because I wasn't very good at the politics piece. Being very neurodivergent, I looked at things in a very black and white way and probably challenged in the wrong way at times because I couldn't understand why we had to spend too much energy on certain things.
I get that.
But, like anything, you have to look back at it and think it's made me who I am. I would say I'm a leader now, but not of teams. So like my biggest team was at Virgin when I headed up leadership, talent and apprenticeships. And I had about 50 team members, like directly and indirectly reporting into me, which burnt me out. I left that role in about 18 months. It was just too much, probably for the reasons that you support people with and more, I can imagine. But leading a business or being a thought leader and leading kind of subcontractors, delivery partners, client thinking, best practice in the industry, that kind of cross between a leader and an individual contributor or a thought leader or however you want to badge it, that's where I feel more comfortable in a leadership space and a leadership role.
Yeah, brilliant. Such beautiful insight and honesty there, because I think quite often we can kind of go into that career world and expect that we have to do that next step, and we go into it and we either thrive because we've had the right input, support, and it suits us and we're good at it and we get good at it and we love it, or do you know what, it's just not our bag, and that's okay too.
Yep, for sure.
What worries me is we spend too much time trying to help people who don't want to, or it's just not their strong suit to do it. I'm very much an advocate of those with the right attitude and who really do genuinely want to do it.
Yeah.
I think we can help people to do that, to get there. But I think when people are recognizing this isn't something I love, then we've got to give up and do something different, haven't we?
Yeah, for sure. And I think through that, I knew I loved L&D anyway.
Yeah.
But I probably fell in love even more with the specifics of L&D as opposed to leadership and management.
Interesting.
Through the people space and the results space, as opposed to and I've probably got a skewed view on leadership because of my experience and getting duff feedback and all that kind of stuff. So I've probably got starting to feel a bit like a therapy session. I've probably got stuff I need to still work through around my behaviour and other people's behaviour at that point, and the scars that we ended up carrying because of those experiences. But again, I'm very much kind of one that says, well, because of all that, I now know the people I know, I have the network I have, I run my own business, I work when I want to work, I've achieved a lot of my goals. It's made me quite resilient and hardy in the right way.
And as what's interesting there is we've got a slightly different angle on kind of, so I agree with you in terms of the risk and damage to people in that middle management area. of stepping in and going, kind of like, how do we handle that politics piece when we've never really been exposed to that stuff before? Well, sometimes, as an HR lifer, you do get exposed to the politics stuff quite early on, but then there's another level of it when you're leading it within a team. And then you become aware of how much blocking is required and how much kind of protecting of your department you're having to step into.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a particularly comfortable place for most human beings to be, quite honestly, without it affecting how you lead.
Yes.
And I think that getting that balance right of actually, can I love both parts of this and make both parts of them work for me and my team is a real skill, but it's also an opportunity. And if you can get there, it's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a hell of a skill.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't love when if I think about my roles now, I've come away from it thinking maybe, you could stick me in a leadership role now, I'd probably enjoy that more than just sticking me in a HR.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I really enjoyed the team leadership aspect of things.
Yeah.
But hey, that's the all sorts thing going on, isn't it?
For sure. It'd be boring if we're all the same, right?
Absolutely.
For sure. And the other thing I'd add to that is like knowing what I know now around neurodiversity, neurodivergent, and just general diversity in ED&I as it is, take away the neuro piece. Like when you are different or you think differently or your brain's wired differently and you struggle to comprehend the types of feedback you're getting or the environment you find yourself in because it just doesn't make sense to you at the time, you're having to operate, in that neurotypical way. It always, and I've heard this from other neurodivergents before, it always feels like you're pushing water uphill, but you can never quite understand why. And that's definitely a theme throughout my leadership career, for sure.
And that's incredibly challenging when, especially when you haven't got awareness of that yourself,
for sure.
That you're then like feeling like you're hitting that, I'm not in the same circumstance. So I'm neurotypical. So but still was incredibly challenged by like, why don't you just tell me in the moment that that's how you feel about it rather than us have a conversation? You don't tell me how you feel.
Yeah.
And then I hear about it from a board member.
Somebody else, for sure.
In the back, what? Yeah. And then, so I think the whole politics stuff is such an important thing to help people stepping up to the next level.
It should be like one of those things you learn at school or certainly at uni or whatever, or on your apprenticeship course or your CIPD or whatever it is. It's probably the biggest energy drainer for anyone in a kind of partnering type role.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of us learn the hard way.
Yeah. Really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing so much about that there. So let's dive into the AI space, your kind of specialism. Like I say, you're my go-to gal for this topic on this. So talk to us a little bit about where you see the opportunities with AI for leaders and their teams. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, and it's interesting. You could probably ask me that every 6 months for the last 2 years, and I'll probably give you a slightly different answer purely because of how quickly things are changing. And I would say, number one, as a leader, manager, or individual contributor, don't feel like you need to be an expert in any of this stuff. Don't feel like you need to go and do on the Microsoft courses, the LinkedIn courses. Don't feel like you need to be an expert, a jargon buster. The core foundations in business skills, leadership management skills at this time to embrace an AI skills first future, because these two things go hand in hand, technology and skills first, is the fundamentals and like agility, being able to, because of the pace of things as a leader, role model to your team, or at least articulate to your team the importance of going forward of being able to drop old knowledge and skills that are no longer relevant for now, let alone the future, and actually be able to pick up new skills and apply them straight away. And a lot of that's to do with ego, because we like to build our power and our resources around what we think we know or the expert that we're perceived to be. And we know in leadership that's something you should be dropping anyway, because leadership is around flexibility and supporting and, the strategy and change and all that kind of good stuff. I think if anything, this stuff's probably on steroids now if you're a leader. So understanding things like learning agility, understanding things like continuous improvement and demonstrating that, having ongoing conversations, parking your own ego for the benefit of other people. And examples of that, what we've seen recently is still people wanting to use old school technology or being able to this might be a surprise to people, but go and Google stuff for the information that they need when you can just go into ChatGPT and get a tailored answer straight away. That's quite a new thing that people be like, well, what's the difference between Google that I always use for my research and my knowledge or my information that might take me 2 days? Actually, for a large language model, you could put the same thing and get something immediately. Google's an advertising agency, that's what it's there for. So it's the mindset and the skill set of being able to do things differently. Coaching looks different, feedback looks different, development plans look different, and delivering through people is probably more imperative now because we're not as reliant on those hierarchies and power and resources than ever before.
Yeah.
Getting people using new technology and these skills is fundamental as leaders going forwards.
Really interesting. And I just think that kind of, we've just got to stop trying to do the same stuff and open our minds up, haven't we, in terms of things. So, I was very open with Erica before we started this call that I've been a little bit like, yeah, I'll get to it, I'll get there. And a lovely friend gave me a good old nudge about, why don't you put that into ChatGPT and see what it says, kind of thing. And
yeah.
So I put in some questions, what question should I ask you today?
Yeah.
And it's given me 30 odd questions, like themed and all that kind of stuff. And I'll ask you some of those questions afterwards when we get there. But that's the difference, like it was immediate, it was instant. There's a whole kind of array of different options in there. It's organized it for me. And if I'd gone onto Google, I'd have got a response which would have been somebody else's website who wanted to tell me their answers to those questions rather than genuinely what the questions I should be asking an expert.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really good example, because what I can almost hear some people listening to this podcast now going, but isn't that cheating? Isn't that plagiarism? Isn't that laziness? And all of that stuff. No, it's not, because you're already doing all this stuff. It's just taking 4 times as long is what you could do in collaborating, and I use that word deliberately, collaborating with a large language model like Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT. Because if you get into your head that you've got another resource, another headcount here, another team member, a thought partner, a coach, whatever you want to badge it as, depending on the prompt that you're going to use, I always think the most important resource we have is what's in our heads. It's not our brains, but it's our head space. It's our ability to critically think and analyse. And when we're filling our head up with loads of rubbish, like we do tend to because of power and politics and ego and corporateness and all that kind of stuff, we don't have the headspace and the energy and the crystallization and the laser focus sometimes as leaders that we could probably do with. We need to be laser focused on things like the future and strategy and how we're going to maintain our organisational edge. If we can defer, default, delegate a lot of other stuff, particularly if we don't enjoy it, then why wouldn't we do that? And that's what AI now brings to us as leaders.
And it's easy.
And it's easy.
I'm not a tech, like good at it in any way. I'm not, but it's really easy and it's really accessible. And that's what I love about it, actually. It is accessible. This is a really easy way to engage with a new way of thinking and learning and developing. And I think there's huge benefits from that. And so thank you for talking about that. What do you see some of the challenges that maybe leaders are facing in this space?
So the typical sales funnel for me at the moment is a talent or an L&D or HR director will come to me and say, Erica, we need your help. And I start to unpick that through questions like you do on an initial consult. And what tends to be happening at the moment is the CEO or the chief IT officer or whoever it is has gone to the IT people or the information security people or whoever and said, we need to roll out Microsoft Copilot in our organisation, make it happen. And of course, the IT people do all the stuff that they're great at in terms of the tech and the software and the rest of it. But then they get into well, how are we actually going to get people to start using it? Because they start to hear things around fear and distrust and lack of guidelines and safeguards and compliance. And what happens if they put the wrong information into that system? Do we have a policy for that? And then HR says, well, we can't reprimand people if you don't tell them how to use the technology properly. Okay. And it's almost like you unpick. And then it eventually gets to the L&D people and they go, well, A, why didn't you engage me at the beginning? That old chestnut.
Yeah.
But B, what skills do our people need? And I don't mean prompt engineering or how to use Copilot, but everything else around mindset and trust and agility and critical thinking and quality assurance. We know that AI doesn't always get it right, so we can't take the output as set in stone. Managing data in the right way and protecting customers, sensitive information. What can we use AI for? What can't we use AI for? Cheating, plagiarism. I could go on and on and on and on. And that's what people get caught up in. And that's what then becomes the toffee and slows everything down. And people get too worried around fines and compliance and issues and people's own fear that is often hidden as other language or other things. That's what the conversation starts to become. So I think leaders need to be aware of that and put the right safeguards and policies in place like you would do. But these things that I've just talked about, they're not AI driven. We've always had issues around sensitive information and being hacked or data protection. It's just that AI is shining a different light on it. So we need to be revisiting collaboratively IT, HR, L&D, InfoSec, leadership, operations. This has to be a joint thing, not just to get this new technology right, but to get people over the line on it, because we've all grown up with, AI becoming self-aware in the Terminator franchise, exactly. Skynet starts to turn on the human race, or my favorite film franchise of all time is The Matrix, in those movies where, we fight the machines to stay alive. And it sounds a little bit crazy and cuckoo when you talk about it, but people, particularly born in the 70s, 90s, the working generations right now, those kind of leader, middle manager, leadership type roles, this is what we have subconsciously taken in from, movies and sci-fi and narratives and stories. So I always hear on every webinar I run, but what about AI becoming self-aware? And, it's not as far-fetched as you might think. But we need to train people, educate people through hearts and minds, as well as skills and creativity, to use this technology in the right way. So that is the journey that we're often seeing at the moment. Again, highlights the issue around L&D and talent not having the voice at the table that we kind of kicked off about in the pandemic around virtual working and hybrid working and stuff like that. This is shining another light on that, I think.
Yeah, just there's a bit, because I would say I have a relatively growth mindset to stuff.
Yeah.
But I've also still been in this space of, and I probably need to figure that out. But there's a bit of me that goes, get over yourself. Like, if there's a bit of like, if you wouldn't stick it on the internet yourself, why would you stick it into chat GPT?
Exactly.
Like, if you wouldn't stick all your customer data into like a website or Google, why on earth would you stick it into your AI provider? It's like there is a bit of common sense, isn't there, around some of that thinking of like, just calm down.
And have a go. And it's not AI causing the problem.
No.
It's just exposing gaps in communication or training or understanding or education or mindset, to your point. Mindset is probably one of the biggest blockers we're seeing with leaders, and this kind of an analysis paralysis. Actually, like you said, a lot of this just is common sense. It's a new technology. And we saw this, didn't we, in the pandemic? Oh, I'm not using Zoom because it's been hacked, and oh my God, or, and it was like one small situation that happened in Denmark that Zoom was all over within about 4 hours and it never happened again. But that's the myth that everybody holds on to, because it's a good excuse not to do it.
And we love to manage for the 0.5% rather than the majority, don't we? Right?
Exactly. And the organisations that are running with this stuff now, I'm seeing this particularly in the training provider market with apprenticeships. The successful is probably the wrong word. The innovative training providers who are already training apprentices on any type of apprenticeship with digital and AI skills. I'm talking construction, plumbing, mechanics, management, HR, any kind of apprenticeship. They're the people that levy payers and organisations are looking for, thinking, our people need this. So this is brilliant that our apprentices or our graduates are learning this, because we can then benefit from that as organisations. It takes off one of those scary, urgent, important things on my list as a HRD or a talent director, because that's part of also a provider that you should be working with as well. So, and also the government's going to start saying to apprenticeship training providers in England, AI literacy has to be part of the curriculum, just like maths and English, green skills, all of these other things. AI will also be there. So people will have to become AI literate. And we've also got the EU AI Act, which came into force in August last year, 2024. Yes, we are out of the EU now in the UK, but what often happens is we tend to adopt those kind of principles because it's classed as best practice, because they've done all the thinking. They've engaged with the Alan Turing Institute and UNESCO and all these organisations who are accurate best practice. So why wouldn't we adopt those principles? And a lot of organisations are operating in EU anyway, so that already applies to them. So there's a bunch of stuff that's happening. We need to be aware of it, but more importantly, we need to do something about it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. So I'm going to delve into the chat GPT questions that I got.
This is going to be interesting.
I'm just going to share the prompt that I put in. So I put, what question should I ask an AI expert about how to help leaders embrace AI for them and their teams? And quite honestly, I got like I said earlier, 30 odd questions, really good quality questions with themes, with areas to focus on. And that was instant of me pressing return. Sure, that maybe I could have sharpened up that within a sector, within a there's loads of ways.
Iterating, it's not a one and done, right?
Yeah, you can keep going, and I really love that aspect of things. And I was working on putting a workshop together with a colleague, and we were like, we want to rename this workshop. So we've started using that to kind of come up with ideas for how we can get a better, more interesting name to bring people into stuff. And you don't actually have to get lost in it for hours. No. Which you do in Google. Sorry, Google.
But companies pay Google to advertise their services. That's why Google exists, right? So, but the thing, if you can get your head around using AI as a thought partner like you're doing, you can see the benefits straight away. It's easy. It's natural language processing. It speaks to you as if it's speaking the same language. That's the beauty.
And I don't know whether I'm cheating or something, but this was free. I didn't have to pay for this.
Yeah, ChatGPT does a free account. So,
really easy. So I think sometimes I was like, I'm going to have to pay for this. Is going to be something I'm going to have to add on. No, it's not. Just start having a play with things and you will be amazed at what you can achieve from just...
Absolutely, 100%.
From doing that. Right, let's get into question 1. So this was around the theme of building trust. So you might have touched on some of this before, but let's ask the question anyway, and then we can kind of get into that. So how can leaders overcome skepticism or resistance to AI from their teams?
Yeah. And again, AI shining a light on probably an issue that's already been there from a change perspective. The whole kind of, I'm more likely to go along with it if I'm part of the change versus the change is done to me. So the best practice I've probably ever been part of is when we rolled out a massive workforce system at LV, Liverpool Victoria, when I was there back in 2010 to 2014. And we had a great ops director and an ops manager who understood the need for people to have time to think and talk about how they feel about doing their jobs in different ways, which is what this system was basically demanding. So what they could have done is just roll the system out, and we could have done system training, we could have done it over, e-learning or whatever, and said to the workforce, just get on with it. But the recognition was a lot of the workforce there had been in role quite a long time, many of them since their first job, been through various acquisitions and mergers, and were a little bit cynical in terms of, we've seen this before, been there, done that, blah, blah, blah. What we did as part of the learning programme and skills programme was we built in time for everybody just to talk about how they felt about change. Just a couple of exercises just to prompt some thinking way before we went into this is how we use the system type training, which was also important. We had kind of a test office and soft phones and all that kind of stuff. But the hearts and minds stuff has to be done before you go into the skills and creativity piece, because if you don't, what will happen is your skills training or what you have considered is the time required for the workforce to adopt the new technology will be taken up and sabotaged by perhaps a cynical response to what's happening. So ironically, by investing more time and skills into the hearts and minds piece, you get that stuff out the way. You give people a chance to get it out. We are emotional creatures. We are not logical creatures. And as soon as organizations get that into their heads, it doesn't work just by giving someone a process and saying, follow it, and they say 3 bags full. Ironically, that's what a robot or a machine would do.
Yeah. And we don't want them, apparently.
Indeed, yeah, indeed. Doesn't help when you see kind of Musk come out with his army of androids behind him, but just investing that extra time. And I know it's difficult for businesses to take people off the phones or out of the job or whatever. You can do this as part of team huddles in the morning, or you can do this as part of team meetings. Give managers the skill to say, right, guys, in today's team, this is what we're going to do. And this is why it might feel a bit uncomfortable and difficult. Give them a few facilitation skills, get them mapping out a bit of a continuous improvement process with the team, get people involved. You will expedite and accelerate the actual adoption of the end process, in this case, which is AI, using AI prompting or whatever it might be.
What's great about what you've just shared there, and this is something kind of to take the veil down a little bit, isn't it? In terms of, this is change management, peeps.
Yeah.
100%. This is any other thing that you might want to be introducing into your business. You just need to not shy away from it, and you need to look at how you bring that hearts and minds piece in around that. And I think the only thing I'd add to that, and I know you touched on it earlier, is the role modeling. The more you can say, oh, look what I just did, or this is how I've done this, or those types of things as a leader, to show the benefit and to get them involved in it once you've gone through those hearts and minds piece, just is transformational when you want to really implement something.
And it can be really endearing, especially when you're vulnerable. Getting on an all hands or whatever it might be that your organisation does, and say, I was really scared. I didn't have a clue, but this is what I did. And I might have bodged it up first time. So I went and got a little advice from matey boy over the road who was doing it. I asked ChatGPT the best way to use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Ironically, that's always the best thing to do. Ask AI how to use AI, because it will tell you. That's really inspirational and endearing as well. So you don't have to sit in the ivory tower and roll out micro-learning or credentials or qualifications. Sometimes just a bit of time and sharing and inspiration for people to have a go. And what we do in our workshops and stuff like that as well is get people to use a prompt or AI to make their personal lives better. It might be something like you talked about travel earlier, travel planning, or writing a best man speech, or what do I buy the mother-in-law for Christmas, or, just something that kind of erodes that headspace, because you've got to sit and think about it. Get ChatGPT or Copilot or Google Gemini to do the thinking for you. It's not cheating. It's just helping you, so
it takes brainstorming to a completely different level, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
and it doesn't have to be work. This isn't just a work thing. This is going to change our personal lives and our professional lives.
Yeah. Really lovely. So that was question 1. Question 2 is around the theme of understanding AI's role in leadership. Mm-hmm. So what are the key benefits of integrating AI tools for leaders and their teams?
Yeah, I think it probably touches upon the headspace thing.
Yeah.
I think people say AI has democratized learning and education, which it has. You've now got a coach, tutor, educator, lecturer, literally that you can speak to it on your phone. It'll give you the answer. You can put it into a prompt. It'll give you an answer. It's the same with democratizing leadership and challenging our leaders to take things to the next level, because we've all seen, to use a bit of a cliche, the fish rots from the head down. If you don't have the right leader with the right mindset in place, everything else unfortunately follows and says, well, that person's going to do the thing that they probably shouldn't have done, so I'm probably going to do the thing that I shouldn't do because it makes my life easier. Whereas with AI, we can delegate a load of stuff, we can free up energy and headspace, and it can challenge us to do things differently. And if my role is to look at strategy and drive the organisation forward for the benefits of the shareholders or the workforce or the customers, or, let's not shy away with that. That's where a lot of businesses are here to make money, as mine is. It can help us focus and be more integral and more clear and honest on doing the things that we should be delivering on, as opposed to trying to do everything and perhaps not doing things the right way sometimes. So I guess I'm talking about integrity, ironically, with all this, using AI to support you to lift up your capability, but also your mindset as a leader, And then to your point earlier, role modeling that in terms of what does good look like. So team members are more likely to make the right choice rather than the easy choice. I think that could be a massive thing. And you don't have to be years ahead. As a leader, like I said at the beginning, you don't have to be someone who can build a GPT. I was listening to somebody talk at Not World of Learning, the one that we saw each other a couple of months ago, but last year. And he was saying, I think he was from Roche. He was the HR director from Roche. And he was saying, we just need to be 4 minutes ahead when it comes to AI. We need to just be ahead, just understand enough, just be able to implement it, going back to the agility piece. That's enough to make a massive difference as leaders. And that really stuck with me, that 4 minutes ahead, because it takes the pressure off, but it also challenges us enough as leaders to say, actually, I do need to do something different here.
Yeah. It's about keeping the focus on needing to do something with it. It's like with anything that you bring into your organization, if you do it for a week and then stop, it stops.
It's like going to the gym in New Year, right?
Oh,
or like losing weight, or go for a run or whatever. You've got to keep it up to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the problem with filming these things is I'm also seeing my face when we're talking. So I realised I pulled a little bit of a face when we were talking about the democratizing of it. The reason that it kind of got me thinking was a bit around is there a space there around needing to help people to kind of really push over into that space so it truly is democratized? Because otherwise it's only the people who are willing to get into that space, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And we know that everybody responds to change in different ways. We know that people hold their power in different regards, and that always comes down to ego for me. The more I get into this rabbit hole around AI and change, the more I see that ego is probably the biggest blocker when it comes to organizations. It's not policies, procedures, data, safeguarding, capabilities. It's leadership ego, like anything. Happy to be challenged on that.
No, I agree.
But yeah, it's one of those things that's going to challenge us as leaders more than we probably perceive at this time.
Yeah. But it's a huge opportunity, and it's something we should absolutely be embracing. So if our leaders want to follow you, and I totally recommend that they do, where can they find you? Where would be the place for them to come and find you?
For sure. So the website is quantumrise.co.uk. That's where we kind of share all our thought pieces, our blogs. We've got a YouTube channel, Quantum Rise Talent Group, and do connect with me on LinkedIn, Erica Farmer. I share a lot of thinking resources, practicalities, courses, tips, tricks, as well as kind of offering professional speaking, skills workshops. There's some LinkedIn Learning courses that you can access if you've got a subscription to LinkedIn Learning. I do courses on there. And also the AI for the Average Joe podcasts. There's 2 seasons on that. It's a show, episodes are about 20 minutes long. You can find that on the YouTube channel and the website, absolutely free. And that is great for just getting started and understanding more. You can work along with us with certain large language models on there. And we interview special guests and experts in the AI space as well. Some really interesting stuff specifically around ethics, environmental impact of AI, and what does that mean? Some of the stuff that is shared I would never have thought about, which really gets you thinking about use of technology and the environment in different ways as well. So definitely recommend, that's a great place to start if you want to access some free resources as well.
Brilliant. I mean, bags of it there, isn't there? Absolutely loads of it. So Erica, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you joining us.
Brilliant. Thanks again so much for the invite. And here's to trying AI in different ways into the future.
Definitely. I will be reporting back.
Great. Good stuff.
Thank you for joining this episode of the Purple Sky Thinking for Leaders podcast. You'll find all the resources and the links that we mentioned down in the show notes. If you love this episode, why not share it with somebody else in a leadership role who you think would find this useful? If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if we've earned it, why not leave us a 5-star review? I'm Anwen, your host, and I look forward to welcoming you back to the Purple Sky Thinking for Leaders podcast very soon. Bye for now.